How many times are you going to do knee exercises for knee pain, stretch your low back for back pain, or roll out your foot for foot pain before you realize that the part that hurts is rarely the actual problem? Pain is usually just the messenger. It's the part that got overworked or overloaded or just forced to do too much because somewhere else in your body, something else isn't doing its job. Sometimes it's the joint right next door, but more often it's coming from the complete opposite end of your body. But if you keep chasing pain directly, all you're doing is treating symptoms. I mean, it's like having a hole in your boat and hiring somebody to shovel out the water instead of just plugging the damn hole. So, in this video, I'm going to walk you through three common pain patterns and show you how I approach solving them by looking beyond the area that hurts. This is how you're going to stop guessing and how you're going to fix all your issues at the root. All right, we're going to start this off with pain in the Achilles, one of the most misunderstood issues, especially in people who are running and jumping or anybody increasing their volume and intensity. The common story is that you start running or training more, your Achilles flares up, and then from there you're told to stretch your calf or rest more. Maybe you foam roll it, maybe you do some of those eccentric heel drops, but either way, the pain keeps coming back. The reason why is that the Achilles isn't the problem, it's just the tissue that got overloaded. It is the messenger and not the root cause. So there's two major reasons that this typically happens. Number one, your soleus can't handle the load. So the soleus is the deeper muscle underneath your gastroc, that big meaty part of the calf, and it plays a huge role in absorbing force and stabilizing the ankle, especially during running, deceleration, and landing. The problem is that most people can only engage their soleus in shortened positions. That means when the foot is planted downwards or pointed downwards rather, or plantar flexed. But the moment that they go into dorsiflexion, when the toes come upwards towards the shin, the soleus cannot stay engaged and it shuts off. And that means all the stress dumps directly into the Achilles tendon. So, what we do is we train the soleus to stay active while it's lengthening under load. So first off, we get the feet and soleus primed with what I call a foam roller glute bridge. By putting your forefoot on that roller and bridging up, you're putting the soleus in a shortened position under load. And if you do this right, guys, you're going to cramp like crazy, maybe even shake. And that is a great thing. That is your body reconnecting. And once you've got that connection online, the next step is to start working the soleus into more lengthened positions. So, a great exercise for this is you're going to start standing, press your forefoot firmly into the ground in a split stance position and make sure the toes are relaxed. You're going to keep your heel grounded and then you're going to actively pull your knee forward. Don't just push it forward passively. Actually pull yourself into dorsiflexion using the muscles and fascia up the chain. And when you do this right, guys, you're going to feel tension not just in the feet and the ankle and your soleus, but up into the glute and even your core. That's how you know the chain is starting to reconnect. And speaking of glutes, the second reason the Achilles takes on too much load is that your glutes just aren't doing their job. So the hamstrings and the calves are then forced to overwork. Here's what happens when the glutes don't fire well. The hamstrings are going to have to start picking up the slack. The posterior chain just gets thrown off, and that tension travels down the line through your calves, and eventually it overloads your Achilles. So if you're ever or you've ever done glute bridges and you've only felt your hamstrings light up or cramp or just feel like they're ripping apart, that is your signal that your glutes are off and everything else is trying to compensate. To fix this, what we're going to do is go back to that foam roller glute bridge. And the key is not just lifting your hips up, it's locking in from the inside out. So your glute should actually feel like it's sealing you into position. And if you feel too much hamstring, then you're either too far from the roller or you're not engaging enough deeply through the glutes and the foot. So start close, dial in the position, and then slowly build outwards to create a longer lever position that's going to be more similar to running. And when done right, guys, this one exercise reconnects everything: your foot, your soleus, hamstrings, glutes, all firing in unison. And you're going to start feeling your entire foot rooting into the ground, your glute stabilizing, your pelvis, and your soleus helping control your ankle position under load. And you can progress this to bridges in that position, calf raises, and beyond. But the key is connection here, not complexity. So, bottom line, guys, Achilles pain isn't just a calf issue. It's usually a glute and soleus issue, and more than anything, it's a coordination problem. If the glutes don't stabilize and the soleus can't absorb load in that dorsiflex position, then your Achilles is stuck doing the job of everything upstream and it breaks down. So stop stretching your calf and wondering why it's not helping, and instead reconnect your chain from the glute to the foot and teach your system how to load the way that it was actually designed to. And just a quick reminder, guys, everything I'm sharing here is meant to give you a new lens, not to act as some one size fits all medical advice. If you're dealing with something like insertional Achilles tendinopathy, for example, then the approach may need to be adjusted a little bit with different angles, different loading patterns, slightly different timelines. And also, if you're an athlete in season or your sport just places specific demands on your body, that context matters a lot too. Rehab isn't just about fixing one thing, it's about fitting the solution into your real life and your goals. So, again, don't take this video as a literal prescription. Please just use it as a framework to understand how your body works as a whole, how tension travels, how compensation builds, and how healing often requires zooming out and not just zeroing in on the issue. So if we were working together, I'd assess your movement chain directly, help you identify the root issues, and then from there give you a precise game plan to start fixing things the right way for your body, your sport, and your specific goals. Now, for example number two, we're going to move on to one of the most common issues that I see: low back pain. So, depending on who you ask, you're going to hear a lot of surface level advice, whether it be just stretch your back or strengthen your core, activate your glutes more. And some of these aren't totally wrong, they just lack real clarity and depth. Because it's not just about stronger glutes or more core exercises. It's about how you create control and tension through your torso and pelvis and how those pieces work together. So let's simplify this a little bit. Back pain is basically a disconnection between your rib cage, your core, and your pelvis. When people struggle with low back pain, they usually lack that coordination between the two key zones of your rib cage and your pelvis. And basically, these need to function as one unit, a pressurized, connected canister, not two floating pieces that are just doing their own thing. Most people can't feel their obliques or their lower abs. So when they rotate or twist or move under any load, they're not stabilizing through the core and they're just shoving all that force straight into their spine. That's why rotational athletes like your golfers, basketball players, even Gen Pop folks who twist during any movement end up with irritated backs. The load just isn't being managed by the muscles that are supposed to handle it. So here's a drill I like to teach that reveals a lot about your core control. You're going to get into a split stance, right foot forward to start. You're going to pin the right side of your ribs down, not forcefully, but just enough to feel your oblique engage. And you're going to rotate to the left, but the key is to keep your right ribs locked down as you rotate. Most people will just lose tension through the right oblique when they rotate, or maybe their shoulders will rise and take over. And that is your cue that you're compensating. What you should feel is that the right oblique holds tension, the left oblique fires through that twist, and the glute and foot should be on that front leg, loading up and pressurizing like crazy. It's basically a pulley system. So both sides of your obliques need to stay active if you want to create a balanced, efficient rotation. Also, make sure to keep the shoulders relaxed. Again, if you're shrugging or clenching through the traps, that's tension that your obliques are not handling. So you can do this on both sides with either leg forward, and you're going to start to notice which side needs more work. Now, the second piece of this puzzle, once you've built that external tension, that pressurized canister from the outside, the next step is to pressurize from the inside out. And this is the real foundation of spinal stability. You don't need to blow your belly out like you see powerlifters doing. Instead, just hold that compact cylinder with the ribs stacked over the pelvis and just breathe into it. Just think of your inhale as building internal pressure. Air fills the rib cage and expands 360 degrees around all the way down into your pelvic floor and then outward into the side walls as well, all while you maintain that core tension on the outside. And the exhale is just going to lock everything in. You don't let go of that tension when you inhale again. You maintain it as your system expands, kind of like a balloon just expanding, building pressure. And that elastic cushion acts in a way that protects your spine and powers your movement and just lets you stay explosive and fluid without breaking down. So, a simple way to train this is to get on all fours, start with full exhales, feel that tension build in your abs and your obliques, and then you take deep inhales slowly, trying to expand into that tension without losing it. So you're basically training your system to hold that proper shape, build pressure, and move air without collapsing. And seriously, guys, when I say that this ability translates to nearly every sport and lift that you care about, I don't say that lightly. So again, back pain isn't just about strength or stretching. It's really about coordination. It's about controlling load through the deep internal structures, not just slapping on more exercises. And again, this is just a general framework. Every case is different. If you're dealing with a disc injury, nerve tension, or maybe sport specific back demands, there are nuances to consider. So that's why if we work together, I assess how you moved, figure out where the disconnect is, and give you the exact progression that your body needs. But if nothing else, I want you to take this idea. Do not just try to kill the pain, fix the pattern. Because once you do that, the pain usually takes care of itself. All right, guys, we're going to finish up with the third example here. But just so I know I'm not talking to myself here, if you've made it this far, drop a comment below. Say you're a real one, just so that I know there's people watching this. So just drop you're a real one in the comments if you're still here. But, anyways, let's finish with shoulder pain. And again, just like back and Achilles, guys, most people are treating the site of the pain instead of addressing the pattern that's actually creating it. So here's how this usually goes. You go to the gym or physical therapy and they tell you your rotator cuff is weak, or oh, your pecs and your lats, they're just really tight. You got to roll those things out. Or your traps are overactive. You got to get some acupuncture needles in there, man. Or you just need more mobility. So from there, what do? You stretch, you do the banded rotator cuff exercises, you see your acupuncturist, foam roll your lats, maybe throw in some face pulls, whatever. And sometimes, yes, you feel a little relief, but it doesn't stick, especially not when you try and load up intensity. The reason being that your shoulder isn't the real problem. It's your shoulder that's doing too much. It's being forced to move and stabilize because the areas that are supposed to support it are offline. So let me make this really simple for you guys. Your shoulder is like a crane arm. It's supposed to lift, swing, and rotate. That is its job. But for it to do that smoothly, it needs to be mounted to something stable. That mount is your scapula or your shoulder blade. And the scapula itself is then mounted to your rib cage, which only works well if your core and your pelvis are aligned and engaged. So if your core is disconnected, If your rib cage is flared or floating, if your scapula is sliding around without any muscular support, then your shoulder has no stable base. So now when you reach, press, or throw, even just move your arm, your shoulder has to do two jobs at once. It has to create movement, and it also has to stabilize itself while moving. And that is a recipe for overuse and breakdown. I mean, you wouldn't try and throw a punch while standing on a surfboard because you have no base. But that's what your shoulder is doing when your core and scapular system just aren't working together. So, this is also why all those rotator cuff drills and stretches and those banded warm ups aren't really solving the problem, because they're just patching up the issue locally when your issue is actually a global one across your whole body. Your rotator cuff is not the problem, guys. It is just the last guy on the team that is trying to hold things together. And if your scapula isn't anchored properly to a stable rib cage and core, then all the rotator cuff strengthening in the world is not going to make a lasting difference. You are strengthening the end of the chain, not the base that actually relies on it. So, we're going to get into how we fix this. I always start by looking below the shoulder. So first we get the core engaged and the ribcage stacked over the pelvis. This is your foundation. Then from there, we teach the scapula how to glide and anchor properly against that base, not just floating off the back or frozen or stiff, but dynamically supported through the serratus, the lower trap, the obliques, even the glutes and the feet when your whole system is on. But here's a piece that most people overlook, guys. It's not just about your muscles, it's about pressure. You need to be able to create intra abdominal and intrathoracic pressure. Intra abdominal meaning pressure that you build in the lower part of your torso, your abdomen, and intrathoracic pressure that you build in the thoracic region or the middle of your torso. And so you expand that pressure outwards against the rib cage, the chest, the upper back, and that forms the internal support system for every single upper body movement that you do. And a great way to start building this awareness is with something really simple. I've talked about this exercise on this page a ton. A standing farmer's hold, where you just stand tall on 2 feet and you hold two dumbbells to your side and you focus purely on your posture and your breathing. On the exhale, similar to the bear crawl, you compress everything, contract through your obliques, your abs, your core, like you're just cinching everything inwards while you stay tall and grounded. And then on the inhale, you maintain that core tension and breathe into it. And you want to feel the breath expand 360 degrees around into your back, into your sides, your chest, but without losing the structural integrity that you created. This is what creates that pressurized canister that your shoulder needs. Once this base is active, then you can start layering in the pressing, the pushing, the overhead movements, all with a stable, pressurized foundation underneath. I walked through a full breakdown of how to actually use your shoulders properly in those movements and how to connect that movement of your shoulder to the core in another video that I will link somewhere around here. But again, shoulder pain does not mean you have a shoulder problem. It means that your system is out of sync. And your shoulder, just like your Achilles, just like your back, is the one paying the price for it. So instead of chasing that pain, guys, I know it's the easy thing to do, but seriously, just zoom out, reconnect your chain. That is when things really will start to change for you. Now, at this point, guys, you've got a choice. You can keep going down the rabbit hole of watching YouTube videos and trying to piece this all together for yourself. And maybe eventually you'll find what works, because honestly, that's what I did. But it just took me over a decade of trial and error and setbacks and wasted money, honestly. Or if time really matters to you, if you're ready to stop guessing and you actually want to move like an athlete again, you can just work with us. We've helped hundreds of high performing professionals and former athletes rebuild their bodies from the inside out in the exact way that I've spoken about in this whole video, not just to get out of pain, but to perform better than they did in their supposed prime. And this isn't some generic online program. And no, it is not cheap, but it is the most effective system in the world for restoring connection and building lasting athleticism and just unlocking the kind of movement that feels powerful and fluid and free again. So if you're ready, just book a call. We'll figure out exactly what's holding you back. And if it's the right fit, we'll map out the exact path forward for you. If not, no worries. But just know that watching more videos isn't going to get you to where you want to be. Your body changes when you stop consuming and start committing to the right inputs at the right time in the right order. And we are a great place to go for help with that. So, balls in your court, and I'll see you on the other side.